How would you describe your relationship with Jordan, and how did it start? And when did you get to know him?
Well, I think it's a good relationship. I mean, obviously, he came up at the very beginning and played a little bit, when we still had the reserve league type of thing. He played for our reserve team. I remember he scored a goal down in Portland. So we had talked a little bit there. We had talked in advance of us recommending him for the under-20 team. And, through, his father and mother, we actually, myself and my wife have become good friends with Mr. and Mrs. Morris. But, Jordan and me would always stay in communication with each other. And so I think the relationship is good. But I don't want to heap any more pressure on him than it needs to be.
I have a memory of you kind of standing by the side watching one of his games at Starfire, his academy games, and he scored a goal. You made a comment to Dr. Morris about your son can play here a little bit. I mean, so it sounds like you were. This was before he was playing with the reserve team. So do you think he would have been someone that you would have noticed regardless of who his dad was, or did having a relationship with his dad kind of help you notice him a little bit?
No, I noticed Jordan outside of the relationship with his father. I mean, he was a player that you could notice. But, as a coach, you look at a lot of young players, and obviously maybe a little less today than I did as a college coach. But, as a college coach, you'd look and, obviously some you get right and some you get wrong. And to be successful, you got to get more right than wrong. But there was just something in his game. I remember saying to Alan Hinton, hey, when you watch the academy team next, let me know what you think of this guy. Alan came back and said, yeah, there's something to his game. And I said, yeah, I saw the same thing. And it proceeded from there. So it wasn't a case of, and I always try and watch games with a very open mind, even when we scout, like at the Combine. Even though Kurt has seen all the players, I don't want to hear who he's seen. I'd rather look at it with an open eye and see what I can see.
You mentioned watching him with Chris at some point, and that's when you sort of realized that he could be a special player. Do you remember when that was?
Chris had watched him with the academy, and then I had watched him play with the academy. Like the game that was referred to, and then he came up and trained with us a few times, and also played with the reserve team. As I said earlier, I remember the goal he scored against Portland down there with the reserves, and you sort of said, hey, this guy has some potential. Started digging and asking, why has this guy never been involved with the youth national team? Why has he never been recommended? And and sort of pushed a little bit from there.
Why don't you think where he is now, it's a little hard to imagine that it was only 3 years ago that he was not in the youth national team setup at all.
Sometimes, players develop at different times and people pick it up, and sometimes you watch a game, you happen to catch a guy on the wrong game, so you don't know whether the scout caught him at a wrong game or not. DeAndre Yedlin was the same thing, where he was in the pool, and then he was outside the pool, and then he was playing with us, and we said, hey, you really need to look at him again, and got himself back in there. So sometimes the things are there. Christian Roldan is a good example now, where I think he's of enough quality to be looked at, but, it just hasn't worked out yet for him. But like I say, players grow and players develop and take those final steps at different times.
What are your expectations for Jordan's first season? Both how much he'll play with the first team and just kind of where you think he'll fit in?
Well, the expectations are that he's going to contribute to our team. How that's going to work in terms of the rotation, in terms of how many minutes, I can't, predict that now. But he's definitely going to see significant minutes. It gives us an option to certainly, possibly platoon a little bit, rest guys, not have to. I think at times last year we had to play guys to the point of wearing them out, and that contributed, I think, to some injuries. So it's going to help in that regard. But on the same token, you give a player as much as he's able to devour. And he's a player, I think, that has a big capacity, and the more he goes out there, the more comfortable he feels, and the more success he has, the more he'll get.
Any of his learning BS2, or is he somehow separate from that?
I really don't see him with S2. I see him, pretty much in our pool of players, and I think he's going to get enough playing time with us. And between us and national team commitments and the Olympic team, there's not going to be time for S2 in there.
And then, sort of separate from Jordan specifically, but since this last time we could see you, what do you make of the changes of the offseason? What do you think of the team that you'll be bringing to camp tomorrow?
We're happy with some of the moves we're able to make. Obviously, signing Jordan was a big one. I think the trade for Jovan Jones was also a significant move. The addition of Michael Farfan, was important for us, a little more experience in midfield. But I think what a lot of people have forgotten is that we basically brought in 4 guys last year in the middle of the season, which is a lot more than most teams bring in. So you got to look at a few of those guys as being really this year's additions. They're going to be much better in year 2. Hopefully Roman Torres will get back as well, and then as a result of that, I think we'll be a fairly strong team. Some of the depth behind that's going to be a little bit younger, but it's also younger players. When we say younger, it's guys like O'Neal Fisher, it's guys like Damian Lowe that have been with us and we feel have a good potential to succeed at the next level.
How is the Torres rehab?
It's going well. It's going very well.
It's still mid-season. It's still well.
Yeah, probably.
Adrian was saying that there's really no right answer on the proper way to develop a young player. Go to Europe, start in the MLS. Where do you come down on that?
Same. I think everything's an individual thing. I mean, when, again, referring back to my days in college, there were some players that I encouraged to leave after a year or 2 years, and there were some guys that needed to stay all 4 years. Everybody's an individual, and it's a matter of their growth and their comfort. And I think the worst thing we do sometimes is send players to Europe before they're psychologically ready to play. Maybe they're technically able to play there, maybe they tactically can understand how to play there, but it's psychologically it's a different assignment. You're still in Europe as an American player, you're still looked down upon a little bit, and so that makes it a little more difficult. You can't just be a little better than the guy you're competing with. You got to be a lot better because you're an American. And so are you prepared for that? Are you prepared, to living away from home? The change in language. All those things are important. And the thing is, if you put yourself into an uncomfortable situation, your growth stagnates. And the best example is Landon Donovan when he went to Leverkusen. It was a good situation, but he wasn't comfortable, and so his growth sort of stagnated. And when he came back, all of a sudden he took off again. And so I think every player is different. You can't say this is the right way or that's the right way. So for some, it's going straight to the pros out of high school. For some, it's going to college a few years. For some, it's going 4 years to college. For some, it's going to Europe as soon as possible. And for some, it's waiting, and maybe for some, it's never to go.
That said, is the MLS, as it grows and develops, becoming a more attractive option?
Yeah, I think MLS is becoming a more attractive option, certainly in terms of quality of play. I think it's definitely improved, it's become a more attractive option. But the other thing is just financially. It's continuing to grow and becoming a more attractive option. So, I referred to earlier in 2005, I was faced with advising a player, and just the contractual difference was so significant. It was like, look, you have to look at this. But now that's no longer the case, per se, and so that helps keep some of the people at home as well.